All right, let's get right into it because the last 48 hours have been an absolute whirlwind. We're talking military action, total diplomatic confusion, and some really high-stakes accusations flying between the United States and Iran. And all of this is happening while a fragile ceasefire is just about to expire. We really need to break down what is going on here.
So, we have to start with the most dramatic piece of this puzzle. The first direct military clash between the US and Iran since this whole ceasefire thing was even announced. Now, this wasn't some proxy attack or threat. Nope, this was a direct hit.
And the news broke, as it so often does, directly from Donald Trump. He put out a statement announcing that the U.S. Navy had actually engaged and seized a massive Iranian cargo ship called the Tosca. You know, a single move like this just raises the temperature in an already boiling region dramatically.
So what exactly went down in the Gulf of Oman? I mean, this wasn't just some simple boarding operation. No, this was a whole sequence of escalating steps that took us right to the very edge.
So the White House laid out a pretty clear chain of events. They claim this huge Iranian ship, we're talking nearly 900 feet long, just flat out refused to listen to any warnings. So what did the U.S. do? Their response was to fire directly into its engine room. Now, that's a disabling shot, not a sinking shot. And right now, U.S. Marines have full custody of that vessel and whatever it was carrying.
And this is the ticking clock at the center of this whole crisis. All of this is happening literally as a temporary ceasefire is set to expire. That window for some kind of peaceful resolution, it is closing, and it's closing fast.
Okay, so let's shift gears to the diplomatic front and see how this all builds. Because while warships were facing off at sea, a really desperate last-ditch effort for peace was supposed to be unfolding in Pakistan.
You know, to say the host city is on edge, well, that would be an understatement. Islamabad has basically been transformed into a fortress. We're talking 18,000 security personnel, snipers on rooftops, mandatory anti-riot gear for all officers. This isn't just security, folks. This is a clear signal of just how volatile these talks are.
But even as the city was locking itself down, this bizarre wave of confusion started coming out of Washington about who is actually leading the American diplomatic effort.
The chaos is it's so clear when you look at the timeline. First, reports pop up saying Vice President J.D. Vance is out. Then, President Trump himself confirms it. Case closed, right? Nope. Just hours later, the White House tells CNN the exact opposite, that the VP was, in fact, on his way. I mean, that kind of mixed messaging does not exactly inspire confidence on the eve of critical negotiations.
Now, Iran, for its part, was sending a much clearer and, frankly, a much harder message. Their ambassador to Pakistan basically said publicly, you can't threaten a country with war crimes and a naval blockade and then pretend you're seeking diplomacy. The message was totally unambiguous. As long as that blockade is in place, real talks are pretty much impossible.
And this led to completely contradictory reports from major news outlets. So you have CNN reporting that the Iranian delegation is literally en route to Islamabad, while at the same time Iran's own state-run news agency, IRNA, is reporting that Iran had rejected the talks entirely. It felt like the diplomatic track was just collapsing before it could even begin.
The tension wasn't just cooped up in those talks in Pakistan. Nah, it was spilling over into a really dangerous war of words. And it was centered on the most critical shipping lanes on the entire planet.
And then President Trump dropped another bombshell. He accused Iran of attacking European ships in the Straits of Hormuz, calling it a complete violation of the ceasefire and saying, quote, "This was not good at all."
But here's where the information just gets so murky. While Trump was adamant an attack on a British vessel happened, the UK's own Ministry of Defense and Department of Transport said they had received no such reports. This really highlights that intense fog of claims and counterclaims that's clouding this entire crisis.
So why does any of this matter to you? Well, because it's a direct threat to the global economy. The Strait of Hormuz, where something like 20% of the world's oil passes through, is already under a blockade. And now, Iranian-allied Houthi forces in Yemen are threatening to shut down the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, another absolutely critical choke point.
The potential economic catastrophe here is just stark. If the Bab el-Mandeb Strait closes, it could instantly halt 10% of all global trade and disrupt the flow of 4 million barrels of oil every single day. The ripple effects from that would be felt in every single country on Earth.
So with Pakistan hosting these incredibly fragile talks, let's kind of zoom in on the host nation itself, where, believe it or not, domestic politics were creating their own waves at the very same time. So specifically, we're going to look at a political rally held by the Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf Party, that's the PTI, in the city of Mardan, which is a key political stronghold for them.
Now, this rally was actually pretty significant. The PTI had canceled a much larger event as a gesture of goodwill for the peace talks, so this smaller gathering in their home province was seen as a real test of their current political strength, especially since their leader, Imran Khan, wasn't there.
And the turnout? Well, estimates range from about 5,000 to 10,000 people. A respectable showing for a local event for sure, but not the kind of massive, nation-shaking crowd that would cause tremors in the capital. It was really more of a regional show of force.
But the most interesting thing to come out of that rally was this quote from a local PTI leader. He boldly claimed that these U.S.-Iran peace talks, which, by the way, his party has no direct involvement in, were actually the fulfillment of Imran Khan's vision from 2 decades ago. It's a classic political move, right? Take a major international event and frame it as your own victory for the home crowd.
And that brings us to our final, lingering question. We have a direct naval seizure. We have contradictory reports on diplomacy. We have a war of words over vital waterways and a ceasefire that is just hours away from expiring. In this incredibly tense standoff, full of brinksmanship and uncertainty, who is going to make the next move? Who blinks first?